Welcome everybody to the third Selborne Wine Society virtual tasting. Roger's going to run through the logistics on what's happening this evening. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Roger.
Yeah, this evening is certainly a bit special. Very shortly we're going live to the Western Cape of South Africa, to the Luddite Vineyard with Niels Verberg. In the meantime, Ian and I are just going to run through a few points of how the evening is going to work.
Just before we start, Roger, that's a very interesting outfit you're wearing this evening.
Well, yeah, actually, Ian, it's I've come straight from work. It's the new staff uniform. I've got a new job.
Didn't know you had a new job, Roger.
Yeah, well, it came out of the last virtual tasting, actually. Somebody saw it on YouTube and liked the beards and gave me a call.
That's good. What are you doing?
Well, I got a call from Rome and they've offered me the job of the new Jesus.
That sounds interesting. How's the training going?
Well, I have to say the training is a bit heavy. There's a section on pain management at the end, which looks a bit heavy. I really must read the rest of the book, actually. Yeah, it's the pay's a bit hit and miss. Apparently it relies on collections and things. Not sure how that's going to go, performance related. But yeah, it's going okay.
Have you done anything on healing yet? My back is killing me.
Healing and raising the dead actually is the next section I'm working on. I'm working on miracles at the moment.
What, like improving Andy Preston's singing?
No, Ian, I said miracles. Blimey, you'll be asking me whether Andy Henderson can play the keyboards better soon.
No, I'll never ask you that, Roger. Wow, that's very impressive, Roger.
Well, I have to say, I've got a couple of things. I've got a couple of things. I've got a useful one I've been working on with loaves and fishes, which I thought the Wakes or the Selborne Arms might be able to use. But there's actually one I've been working on today that I think you'll find interesting. Do you want to have a go?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Right, here we go. Watch this. Right, have a go at that.
Right, wow, watch. That's impressive. Sweaty saddle, bouquet of Sasha, tobacco, nutmeg. You know me, Roger. I could go on all night about wine. It smells very much like a wine Nicky, Lara and myself would drink when Andy's away. Probably costs thousands. Probably more than that. I understand he got it from a well-known back of a lorry merchant called Nigel Palmer.
Cool, blimey! I must be getting. I was getting a cheap old Merlot earlier. I must be getting better at it. Let's have a go. Let's have a taste of that.
There you go, Roger. Come back to you.
Oh, hang on, Ian. That's all right. I've got the water back. Let's try again.
Well, it's all working for me, Rog.
Right, pass it back. Come on, let's have a go.
Roger, you realise with your new job, you'll never drink wine again.
Shirley, could you ring the Vatican and tell them I quit? Dreadful, dreadful. Right, well, let's get on with some business. Right, well, in terms of what's going to happen next is we're going to actually sit apart tonight. We're going to hand over the main part of the evening to Andy Roberts.
Hey, just a minute, Roger, just a minute. I'm a bit concerned. Nick, can you take it offline a minute, please, mate? Yeah, I'm a bit concerned. We've got a problem.
Okay, guys. Yep, you are offline now.
What's the problem?
Roger, I'm a bit concerned. I've got a big concern. We've got Niels and Andy on their own running a virtual tasting. You know what it can get like with Niels and Andy, getting a bit leery, a bit off the wall. Things could go wrong. Very, very concerned they can't handle it, mate.
That's quite true, actually. I mean, let's face it, the last couple of times Niels has been in the village hall, he's been breaking bottles and waving swords around. What do you think we can do about it?
Does get the blood. Yeah. Well, I think I should leg it. I think I should leg it down to Andy Roberts and just play, the referee a little bit and see if I can keep the stitches down a bit, Rod.
Well, you got to make it from the Maltbys to Gracious Street. Do you think you can do it?
Well, mate, I'm in training, so I'll give it a go. So I'll hopefully see you in about who knows, about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but hopefully it'll be quicker than that. See you in a bit. Take care.
Right, I'll hold the fort. Nick, can you count me back in?
Okay, you are ready to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're live.
Right, evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's on with the tasting. So Ian, unfortunately, he's been otherwise detained and he's going to be heading off. He might pop up later, possibly, if he can get his running shoes on. So I'm just going to quickly run through what's going to happen the rest of the evening. It's the normal format, 3 wines, followed by 3 lots of questions. Now, Niels has asked specifically if we can ask questions. I think he's not sure we're out there, so he can feel the love if we ask questions, pass comments on the wine. So those of you that have got the website set up, please stick your questions on and we'll make sure they get through to Niels all the way down in South Africa to answer. There'll also be a short gap in between the wines to give you a chance to get your canapes and change over the bottles, and also a 10-minute break so you can stretch your legs and anything else. Ian is also going to do the competition this week, so get your pen and paper ready for that. Now, there's a couple of special thanks once again to Nick, our technical wizard, for putting all this together and has put a lot of time and effort into queuing it all up with a bunch of amateurs. And also a special thanks to Elliot Aywin from Aywin, Barrett and Siegel Wine Agencies. So this tasting's taken a little bit of putting together, and with some help from Niels and a help from Elliot, we've managed to get the price into the range and the delivery and everything, the structure there, so that we can get it on. So thank you very much, Elliot. That's been much help. Now, Aywin, Barrett and Siegel Wine Agencies, they're the importer for Luddite wines. They also specialise in importing wines from across the world, primarily South Africa and Australia, but from small family-run wineries and fine quality wines. So we're going to kick off with, before we hand over to Andy Roberts, we're going to kick off with a short video that Elliot's put together for us, just to give an overview of where South African wine is at the moment. So enjoy the evening, make sure you got your corkscrew ready, and have a great time.
Hi, I'm Elliot Iron. I'm an importer that represents a number of South African family-run wineries. South Africa is a wine industry that represents fantastic quality, diversity, value, and indeed heritage that's unseen in most of the new wine world. Over the past 3 years, they've had incredible difficulty. They've had droughts, they've had forest fires, and now COVID-19 has caused some problems that they certainly couldn't have foreseen. The exports were blocked for and embargoed for 6 weeks, and domestic sale, both retail and of course in the on-premise, are still embargoed. So they need our support. As an industry that's barely sustainable in normal circumstances, we're dangerously close to losing access to some of the world's greatest, most interesting wines as farmers scrub up vines and plant more sustainable, risk-averse crops. The best thing is it's not hard to support. All we need to do is drink a lot of South African wine. And we should certainly focus on wines that are estate grown and certainly bottled, and steer away from supermarket and big bar chain own brands that are UK bottled. The 3 wines we're tasting this evening are fantastic examples of such, and I'm really looking forward to Niels talking us through those. And if you've enjoyed these, please look to your local independent wine merchant to find some other examples. Have a great evening. Cheers.
Good evening from the Luddite Cage. Oh, here he goes! Come on, Ed. Come on, sit down.
Christ. That's too bad.
You all right?
No better.
Do you need a drink?
Yes.
Well, you're in the right place. That's excellent. Right, okay. We are in the Luddite Cave in Selborne. Quite a few people have asked me about Niels Verberg and how we got to know him. So we thought we would explain how we know Niels and the family Verberg. Jenny Hall from Cape Town, who's actually dialed into this, introduced us to the South African Wine magazine in 2009. And on arrival in South Africa, I was given the magazine, and this picture was on the front of South African Wine magazine. The fact that my wife Lara was rearing pigs, and we both love Shiraz, we thought it was a fantastic opportunity to pick up the phone and dial in to see Niels. 3 days later, we went to Bot River, and within 5 minutes of arriving at the vineyard, Sasha, who was 3 years old at the time, and Ellie, who was 5, were put to work in the vineyard straight away. I was taken down for a cellar tour and to go through a vertical tasting. And Lara went with Penny to make sausages in the farmhouse kitchen. Ever since then, there's been a big affiliation, because what Niels agreed that day was the next time he was in the UK was to come down to Selborne to run a tasting. He ran a vertical tasting of his Saboteur Red, and what ensued after that was carnage, has been described earlier on. It involved a boat race between anybody that had a South African or an African connection, alongside anybody that was English and brave enough to take them on. The evening finished about 2:30, 2:45 in the morning, and he's been legendary ever since. In fact, over the last 10 years, I think that anybody that's come into action or into contact with Niels, Penny, Alice, Kim, and Daisy, they've had a fantastic experience of a really generous family who make fantastic wine. In fact, there's been quite a few people that have gone out to South Africa and actually gone and spent some time with them. One of the things that I didn't believe was actually true was the Luddite diving board. And this is Sasha jumping off the diving board, which is really quite deep, you'll be glad to hear. When there's a drought, you really have to trust Niels that you're going to be safe enough when that happens. So I think that we're very lucky to be able to have one of the best winemakers in South Africa able to talk to us over a medium like this. And I'm absolutely delighted that we've got a little bit of footage to show you a bit about the Luddites, and then there's one thing I'd like to catch before we hand over to Niels, but this will give you a taste of what it's like to be a Luddite. So, Niels, there are a couple of pictures there. This one is one, okay. This one is another one. It's very, very clear that you like dressing up. And this one here is Obelisk, all right. Now, this is an annual event, I understand, called Barrels and Beards. Would you like to talk us a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, well, firstly, welcome everybody in Selborne. Different times. I think the last time I was there, we were all drinking close to each other. And but yeah, it's good to be doing these things, but also amazing that we can communicate so far away. Yeah, so the Beards and Barrels was we started. I think this year would have been the 10th Beards and Barrels. Obviously, COVID got in the way, and I won't reveal my outfit for this year, but we'll carry it up to 2021. We'll have it, but it all came about is that most winemakers in harvest don't bother shaving. There are more important things to worry about, and so we thought, let's use this opportunity to have a beard growing competition, and it's the first couple of years that was the case, totally out of hand, and it became a little 3-minute skit on the stage, dressed up as any bearded character that you could think of, and a lot of lateral thinking involved in that as well. And coupled with that, it was a big dinner fundraiser, generally raising funds for the Botra Education Fund, and just trying to better our village. And that then became, the tickets sold out, they sell out in half an hour. Now dinner for it, plus 12, 13, 14 winemakers making an idiot of themselves on stage, plus an auction. And we raised some really awesome money in a very short space of time. And we can use that for the betterment of the but it certainly gives us all a little outlet to give our creative side, let's call it, a bit of exposure, and lots of
Tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And there was one other bit in there which is behind me. Cape Winemakers Guild. What's that all about? And this one says the broken ankle. So 2013.
So, well, the Cape Winemakers Guild is a guild of so-called the best winemakers in South Africa. There's a winemaker guild. So it's a sharing of information. We do top flight tastings and just making sure that as an industry we share more information, therefore move forward faster. And one of the things is that we have an auction, one that's my specific guild auction. Wine is generally 2 or 3 barrels, probably even less, 1 or 2 barrels, let's say, and they get auctioned off generally the first Saturday of October. My wines are generally named after one of my kids. The broken ankle story is a rugby story. Kim was playing his first high school game of rugby and got into touch. I think he injured his ankle, and I, as a good father, said, "Listen, there's nothing wrong with your ankle. Just get back on the field and suck it up and go and play." And so he played for another half an hour, and finally sort of said, "Listen, I can't take this pain anymore. Got to come off." So I said, "Okay, get off the field." And about an hour later, he said, "This is getting too swollen. Let's can we not go to the hospital?" So he belatedly went to the hospital, and it was actually broken. So I did feel a bit bad, but that was also the name of the wine for that year, the broken ankle.
I was going to come in there, Niels, and say clearly he doesn't learn his lesson, because I remember doing a line-out lift with him in the middle of Tokyo, when we managed to drop him at the top of the lift, and he came down with a very large smash onto a very hard tarmac floor and hurt himself then again, I believe.
No, he certainly did, but yeah, he lived to tell the tale. That's the most important thing of all these adventures, and we've got to live to tell the tale.
Excellent, excellent. So I think people are probably quite excited about the first wine. Are we ready to go with the first one?
Yeah, we certainly are. We're going to do the berry box. Notice my label looks different to your one. It's a different export label to the, but it is the same wine, 2016. So just a little bit about this wine, and David Finlayson has his own and founded Edgbaston Wines, and this is one of his white blends that he makes, more entry level, and that's why it's called Berry Box as opposed to the Edgbaston. And it's a blend of really Sauvignon Blanc, 77% Sauvignon Blanc, and 80% Sauvignon Blanc freshness. The Semillon will give you freshness as well, but as it ages, you get this more sort of a waxy texture from the Semillon. And then the Voynier will give you this lovely peach and apricot aromatics and sort of fruit aspect to the wine, and a bit of fruit sweetness feel to it. It also gives a lot of texture to this wine, still with a portion of it being fermented in eggs, which has very much become a bit of a rage where people are fermenting in old, almost creating these big amphora in a way. And yeah, it's all Stellenbosch fruit. So 2016 is showing a little bit of bottle age, but beautiful texture. If you notice, slightly older Sauvignon Blanc, sort of tinned peas, tinned asparagus characteristic, and then behind that you get this lovely peach and apricot coming through, and almost you can sort of almost smell the waxiness of Semillon, but there's this lovely peach and apricot. And I think a lovely food wine, there's a little bit of residual, so there's the sweetness, which will make sure that it can handle a lot of spicy foods and certainly coat that those spicy flavors. So enjoy that, and hopefully you all got your meals with. I have at the moment, but it is later in the evening, and I have eaten already today. There's a lovely mouthfeel, lovely roundness to it, and then that finish is nice and fresh from the Sauvignon Blanc, and that's very important. Very refreshing, and I think sounds getting warmer weather there at the moment. So even horror of horrors, you can chuck a block of ice in here and just really enjoy it on the terrace or around. Lucky enough to have a brave enough to have.
I've got a couple of questions. Yeah, Niels, it's 2016 and it's predominantly a Sauvignon blend. I was quite surprised that it's as fresh and it hasn't started to deteriorate. What are the other grape varieties that are involved with this, and how does that actually make the longevity of the wine work?
So generally speaking, well-made wines are going to age better. As I mentioned, it's 77 Sauvignon and 18 Semillon. So it's really good natural acidity. So acidity in a white wine gives you the ability to age. In red wine, it's more the tannin gives the ability to age. With Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, certainly give the backbone to allow this wine to age. And then the Voynier, Voynier's got quite a thick skin, and it would have quite a lot of phenols in there, which is almost sort of a tannin structure, and that certainly helps as well. But yeah, well-made wine, and this obviously, or very little, and the wine shouldn't age too quickly. But yeah, I'm for 2016, 4 years old, aging beautifully. It's got an amazingly fresh color still, and I think it's probably going to age another 4 or 5 years. It'd be very interesting to see. But lovely fresh, really cleanness to the finish, so it hasn't lost image, and that's really enjoyable.
Great.
So Nicky's asking a question, Niels. So the question is, why different wine labels for the internal market and the external market?
I knew somebody had asked that question. I think they wanted to update the label here, and when the label came out, what they mentioned, it's obviously not something to do. I think that just caused confusion, but it was they needed to get the shipment out. It went with the old label, and then the local market ended up with a new label. So it wasn't any particular, definite reason behind it. It just was a timing thing.
Okay, the love is coming. I know it's an unusual situation you find yourself in, Niels, because obviously you're normally used to a Zoom scenario where lots of people chip in. But I tell you, there's a lot of love coming over the questions for you. Obviously, the people who've been out to see you, Nicky and Nigel, Monica and Peter, Mel and Andy, John and Anna, all sending their best wishes to you and wishing they were in South Africa at the present moment in time with you as well. So a lot of love coming over the email, mate.
No, that's fantastic, and we are obviously in the Western Cape, restaurants, all the wine farms. We all rely on tourism, and who knows how long it's going to take before things open up. So it's a pretty scary scenario all around. But yeah, we see love to see all of this. Just perhaps you can come and see. How big is our delay here?
That's all right. It's fine. It's working very well.
Good.
So you're making wines in Bot River, and this wine's come from Stellenbosch. Is there a set of grape varietals that grow more frequently in your part of South Africa versus Stellenbosch because you're closer to the sea?
It's a very. Somebody phoned me yesterday, funnily enough, and said, do you have a Cabernet? And I said, no, we don't have Cabernet. And then I suddenly thought, there's actually nobody in Bot River that bottles, to my mind, I'm standing in the correction, but I don't think so, that bottles 100% Cabernet. I have to go to Selborne. If you look at everyone in the world, there's a reason why those grapes grow in those regions. There's a reason why Pinot Noir comes from Burgundy and Chardonnay comes from Burgundy, and why Mourvèdre grows over thousands of years. They've worked out that's what works there best. And South Africa is 360 odd years old, I think, or just under, and we're still feeling our way, even though we are quite old compared to the other new brands. We're in a position where we've got out what works and what doesn't work. And I'm certainly in my 25 years in Bot River, I'm convinced that Sauvignon Blanc doesn't work. I know that. But I think our climate's a little bit warm. But certainly Shiraz works, Chenin Blanc works, and so that's more, especially in the area coast.
Yeah, I think we're losing you a little bit.
Say again.
So you come back. That's good. That's good.
So we are. And as you know, does this explain what shedding means to the wider great GB public, Niels? Because obviously last night you were definitely in shedding, weren't you?
It was the load shedding.
Load shedding.
We were a little bit worried about you yesterday.
So, you know, there's obviously lots of jokes, but you know, in South Africa, our electricity company, or the company that supplies our power, Eskom, hasn't done themselves any favors, and so when there's a high demand, there was a serious snap for the last 3 days. Everybody's putting on their heaters, and obviously larger demand on the grid, then a lot of the power plant can't keep tripping. So you have a load shedding program that alternates. You have 2.5 hours with no power, power back on, and that was my worry, that the 2.5 hours that was scheduled for tonight was going to interfere with this call. But luckily, the load shedding program has been suspended, and hopefully will be suspended for quite a while. With levels of COVID, we have levels. You have load shedding 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8. When you get to 8, you're down to candles. But generally, it's generally around load shedding stage 2, which is 2 hours a day, basically. So yeah, over the front of the fair. Just to go back to, I think, if you lost me there, if you were South African Cabernet, you don't need to look much further than Stellenbosch. They're making some unbelievable cabs coming out of Stellenbosch.
Right. There's a couple of follow-on questions. One is, when there's load shedding, how do you make sure that all your wine is protected? Do you have generators? What happens if there's no power?
Well, after buying a generator, so I don't actually find, if there's load shedding and they keep to the schedule, then I can deal with it. I can work around that. The only problem is if we had a sudden power failure when the press is upside down and the juice is running out into juice, or wine is running into the juice tray. There's the juice is running way that the last 10 years only happened once. That is obviously bugs around general schedule, but if they schedule, then it's all doable that way. But most of the big farms, obviously hospitals, places like that, would have generators as backup. So as soon as it trips, the generators kick in.
And there's a question from Matt Turner asking, how has exports been affected in the COVID-19 period? Your ability to be able to export.
And in a normal year, Niels, what would you export compared with what you would do domestically? And obviously this year, what's the difference?
Well, the biggest problem with there was a time where we weren't allowed to sell alcohol and we weren't allowed to export, and I can't quite work out why the rule of not being able to export, that was just bizarre. But obviously, without being able to export, for the first 3 weeks of lockdown, it was a lot at the port. I mean, the ports opened. Obviously, everybody needed to get wine out, and the harbour staff or the ports were running on half staff, so there was a huge backlog. A lot of wine took 6 weeks to get, by sitting on the dockside, took 6 weeks to get it onto the other side, actually get on a ship. So ammonium drama. We are now all right, and we're back on track with those exports. So there's no backlog. And Ian, to ask you your question, in a normal year, we would export about 65% of our production, and we would sell for 35% in South Africa. Sometimes we go closer to 70-30, 70 export, 30 local. It'll probably remain the same. I think we've been quite happy with that. And we have been able to export, and our exports have been amazing. But I think, my markets, worldwide markets, I'm 85% restaurant based, and restaurants are going to be the last places to get going. And I think 12 months, we're still getting into this. Our shit's still coming, basically. Put it there. I think 6 or 8 months we won't get the sell through that we would get from those exports, which is quite frustrating. And we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see how restaurants open up worldwide. If most of the rest are running at half their capacity, that potentially means that we're only going to sell half of our exports once they get on the other side. It's a broadcast.
So Niels, the Saboteur, we're going to move on to the your wine. Tell us a bit about how Saboteur came about, as in the... Hello, Penny. Nice to see you.
I love your long hair.
Yeah, thank
Penny
you.
can't help.
I know the background.
Looking good. Are you gorgeous? That's a very big bottle you've got there, Anthony.
Yeah,
it must have been hard hanging a rugby jersey in the background, though.
I love you. Nice to see you.
Okay,
bye, darling.
So everybody get onto some still wine. Let me get the Saboteur bean, which I'm looking forward to tasting just as much as we, in the sense that I haven't tasted this for a while. We've moved on to the 2019, and so we've got Saboteur. Who's got to get it only 27. So 2017 is being touted as certainly one of the better vintages all round in South Africa, and 2017 Saboteur has done very, very well for us. It's a blend of 77 Chenin. I've got to remember because we've got to get back to where we were. So it's 77 Chenin, 19 Voynier, and I think that leaves, 14 Sauvignon Blanc. So again, Chenin's giving you the backbone of the wine. The Voynier is giving this peach apricot that you pick up, and then the Sauvignon Blanc is giving the freshness. This wine, I always feel we should. It almost has a foot in both camps. I want it to be juicy, fruity, refreshing, and enjoyable for the general wine drinker, and then to have the texture and the structure for the serious foodie and wine. And when we get the texture and structure, ferment on skins for the first couple of days, and then fermentation we prep, and we then go into barrel and we finish the fermentation in barrel. The Sauvignon Blanc we directly, and 100% of the juice goes directly into barrel and just ferment dry there. And then once it's in barrel, once a month we stir up the lees. The French would call it batonnage, and that fills out the texture. By doing wine and wine for wines as well. But yeah, for me, I want it to be juicy, fruity, and refreshing for general drinkers, and then have the texture and structure for the serious foodies and winos. And I'm really, if you look at, the color, obviously because and our low salt is always going to be fairly yellow, but the wine is still showing amazing freshness. A lot of peach, apricot, more peach than apricot, then in the Voynier, and then on palate. Really mouth-filling. There's a lovely weight to it. There's the longer it's in your glass, the more flavors you get. It just keeps throwing at you, so you think about it the whole time.
Nick, you bring us to go?
Niels, what sort of temperature would you normally serve this at? Because this is probably a little bit warmer than we would normally taste that, but we're getting a lot rounder flavours and much more freshness coming through. So what's the ideal temperature you'd be serving this at home?
That have texture and structure and that have seen a bit of wood. You definitely want to serve them a little bit warmer. So somewhere between 12 and 16, even up to 18 degrees. And when they're too cold, they just don't reveal all their charms. Very much like a woman, I suppose. But you want to make sure that you get all the flavor spectrum. And I think as the wine warms up in your glass, that's why you get all these different flavors coming through. And I haven't even put this in the fridge, okay, bearing in mind we're in the middle of winter and it's been a cold winter for us. It's absolutely freezing. It's 14 degrees outside. And,
so it's also low alcohol as well in comparison to a lot of other South African Chennins. Was that done on purpose, or is that just the way the wines come out?
Yeah, it's definitely done on purpose. So I think I want the wine to be as natural as possible. All our wines, we don't add anything to the wines except sulfur. We've got to obviously put a bit of sulfur in to make sure that they survive in the bottle. But we pick early because we want to retain that natural acidity. The riper the grapes get, the more of the natural acidity they lose. So Chenin is a lovely grape in the sense that it's very versatile, but also if you peel it retains its natural acidity. So also historically has a very, very low acidity. So we need to pick early so that we can balance the acidity of the Voynier and the Sauvignon and the Chenin. But we're trying to aim around somewhere between 12 and 12 and a half. I want to drink more than a couple of, Germany Chenins, when they get about 13 and a half, 14 alcohol, they get quite hot and a bit clumsy. For me, I want to retain the freshness. So I think this is 12.3 alcohol, and that's right in the slot for us.
Yeah. It's a great wine. Niels is a great wine.
Tremendous.
I'm thoroughly enjoying this wine. There's a question come up from Shirley, asking about obviously some of the cooperatives you do, and I know you share grapes with other growers. Is that right?
We buy grapes in growers, but I don't have enough grapes to share with anybody. That's for
sure. Niels, there's two main labels. There's Luddite and there's Saboteur. What's the difference between the Luddite brand and the Saboteur brand?
So the biggest, the only difference is that the Luddite Shiraz and Luddite Chenin, under the Luddite label, it's grapes that are 100% our own grapes. So grown by us, looked after by us. And then the Saboteur is grapes that are grown by us plus bought-in grapes. So the Saboteur is not 100%. And the from Elgin, which is 20 minutes drive from us. And the balance of the Chenin comes from Bot River from my neighbours. And the Saboteur red Cabernet, a portion of the Cabernet, a portion of the Mourvèdre comes from our own grapes, but the majority comes from our neighbours as well. and a little bit of Mourvedre and Cab from them as well. So we've also, of late, the 2017 Saboteur has got some Grenache in. That's also from neighbouring, but we've actually planted Grenache.
There's another question around the varietals that you have. Do you you change the percentages of the grape varieties, but do you put different grape varietals into the white Saboteur, or is it always Sauvignon, Viognier, and Chenin?
Only always going to be those three. Here we put a little bit of making some Chardonnay. The summer I said barrel, we liked it, and put it into the blend. But it's generally going to be, the Chenin has a role to play in the blend. I want it always to be a Chenin-based blend. The Viognier gives us that fruit-drivenness, and the Sauvignon gives us that natural acidity. So those are the three building blocks. And because of the vintage, and H is different every year, and they all perform differently every year, the blend percentages will change year to year. For us, it's making sure that we blend to get the best possible wine in that year. And some years, if we don't like the Viognier,
Yeah.
Saboteur,
The next question, which I'm sure you're anticipating.
Sorry, there was a delay. So the 2018 Saboteur White, for instance, has got more Sauvignon in than Viognier for the first time. So that 2018 is obviously a lot fresher because of the Sauvignon.
Yeah, great. The next question, and I expect you get asked this at every tasting, so we won't disappoint you, is this little number, all right, the crown top, all right? So is that a marketing gimmick, or does it actually help the wine reduce the faults with a cork?
I'm horrified to hear that you would ever think it was a marketing gimmick. You know me well enough. No, I've never been a fan of screw cap. I think screw cap just looks nasty, cheap, but look. But the actual crown, it's the same one they use to age champagne on the lees before degorging, and it's double thick aluminium, double thick liner, and it is just such a simple, beautiful closure. It's proof. It doesn't damage. Screw cap, if you hit the top of the bottle, it breaks the seal like if you were opening a jam jar. And maybe a screw cap for my liking. New Zealand is all right. Crown cap is bulletproof, and if it can hold 6 atmospheres of pressure aging champagne, then it's certainly good enough wine. And when you call a wine Saboteur, you can do whatever you like, really.
Put us back together again, Nick. So the joy, of course, is a cap. Is once you've opened the bottle, you've got to finish it, Niels.
If I ever make a wine that you don't want to finish, then shoot me.
Fair. Never going to happen, is it?
Very good.
Right, so we're going to move on to the break, or yeah?
I think we might.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good.
So we're going to move on to everybody. We're going to move on to a 10-minute break. Refresh your glasses, have a couple of canapes to soak up some of that fantastic wine, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. So see you soon, everybody.
Cheers.
Okay. Can we get Neil's and Alice on screen as well, please? Hi guys, how we doing? We thought we'd change a little bit of change the scenery a little bit, and the Lions against the Aussie against the South African for next year. So competition time, everybody. So obviously it's next year's the Lions tour. So it's fingers on the buttons, and can anybody tell me in the 1997 Lions tour South Africa who scored the winning drop goal to win the game for the Lions? Fingers on the buttons. Prize to be announced. Go. Back to all three of us.
Brilliant. Right. You'll notice there's someone else on the bridge. Also with the new van. All right. Fantastic. I'd love to know why it wasn't a Luddite van and it's a Saboteur van, but that's tremendous. Anyway, we're now going to go over to a little video that was shot about 10 days ago. A little bit about the vineyard. So let's have a little bit of that, and then Niels, if you'd like to introduce Alice.
Once the video is done,
this is Penny and Alice pruning our beloved Chenin Blanc vineyards on a nice wintry, cold afternoon. All the dogs in attendance. So basically just pruning, what you're doing is cutting away some of last year's wood, the last year's canes, and exposing 2 buds for the growing season. You'll see a couple of green leaves. We've had a spell of hot weather and the vines got tricked into thinking that it was summer. But now we're pruning back to literally 1 shoot on a spur with 2 eyes, and that'll give us 2 shoots, and then hopefully on each shoot 2 bunches, so 4 bunches per spur, in the perfect world, which doesn't really exist in wine.
Verming in South Africa. What? The thing that they try and eat you when you're in the grapes. Grape.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Talk about Alice.
So it's nice to see Alice on screen. She is in the UK with you guys, holed up in St Margaret's at the moment. I just wanted to introduce her in the sense that it's been great to have my daughter join me, and she's been with us since 2017. And it really is nice to have in touch in the cellar. She's tidied up the place a lot better than I do. Giving me a hard time. The important part is I really look at my winemaking through her eyes now, because she asks lots of questions and asks, why do I do things, why do I do that, why do I do this, and it really is a fresh take for me to look through why we do certain things, why we make certain wines, and why we do them in certain styles, by looking through a young person's eyes. And I think that is always important, and I think it's important for all of us. You know, we have to reassess, and great to add a lot of freshness to our thinking, and that's very, very important for us. So Ali, if you'd like to talk about your first wine that you put on the market, and maybe just a little bit about your thoughts on Luddite.
Okay, so it is my turn to speak. Okay. So yeah, I joined the cellar 3 years ago. I actually first studied at cooking school, and via that thought I really actually want to do wine. I asked my parents to join the farm, and they originally said no. So I went out and got some jobs at other places, some wine bars, and via that I really got a love of wine and the wine industry, specifically the South African wine industry, how helpful and lovely everyone is. And eventually my parents said I can join. So 2017, not really knowing much, because I never went to a wine school. My dad said if I want to do wine, have to learn via him, which I think has been the best thing ever for me. So I've done harvests with my dad since 2017. I've also done some harvests overseas, which I've learned a lot. And so in 2017, I said, grapes came in, so not really thinking that much. I said, well, can I try this out? Can I make my own wine? And he said yes, which was really great. So I got about half a ton's, roughly 1 barrel of Shiraz grapes, not Ladakh fruit, unfortunately, but from our neighbors in Gabriel's Kloof, just down the road. And I made a Shiraz, just very simple, just punch downs in the morning and the night, and as like my dad was saying earlier, to make wine as natural as possible and put as much love in. Something I've learned from a few of my travels that I want to take forward is, for me, farming has become more important. I think I want to have the most healthiest grapes, and then you can do as minimal work in the cellar as possible. So I actually luckily bought this wine to the UK. I'm going to give it to a friend. So this is my where's the camera? The first wine I made. The label is actually made from a friend I went to school with, so it's very like homey. And the thought behind the label was just the reason I went into the wine. And so if you see the photos, it's just everyone sitting around the table and enjoying themselves. And it's called wait, I have to find the camera. It's a Shiraz. Just being obtuse when people say, what is the wine called? And I go, it's a Shiraz. And they say, no, what is it called? And it's a Shiraz. So yeah, and for me as well, right now it's about being fruit driven. So I think it's quite a nice fruity wine, but still something my dad's taught me that I think I'll remember for always: good balance and nice structure in the wine. So yeah.
It's back on. Hi, Alice. Can you put that label back up again for me, please?
Questions for Alice. Maybe just Alice, just say what you're going to be doing in the UK.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I lost signal for some reason.
No problem.
I think Alice, one of the questions maybe is just to say what you're doing in the UK, where you're going to be working and what you're up to.
So a few years ago, I found this thing called urban wineries, and I thought it was quite exciting. And there's a few urban wineries in the UK now. The one I'm working at is Black Book. It's actually in a railway arch. I just went to go visit it now, and they make Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So quite excited to help them out. They press about 20 to 25 tons of wine, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So yeah, it's also the same as what we make at home. It's just very homey. It's a wife and husband team, so very excited to work for them and make wine in this.
So Alice, can you just put that bottle of wine back up for me so I can see the label, please?
Yeah, sorry, I have to figure out the camera.
Clearly, as well organised as we are on the Selborne Wine Site, clearly the theme of the evening runs through. Roger, I'm a bit concerned that may be the last supper, and you may be at some point in your new job on that table. So we always try. Alice, thank you very much for joining in with the continuation.
So Alice, there's a story behind this as well. Okay, do you remember that day?
There's mine. Yeah. There's my feet or Sasha's.
That was Sasha and Ellie's. Okay, but I understand this was the first day that you hadn't cleaned out the tanks.
Yes, I'm very competitive, I think, with everything. So the tanks I must do them all while I can as well. So I just, I still love to pick grapes. I actually got asked now when I came to the UK, they said, don't worry, you don't have to pick. And I said, no, I love to. So I love to pick, love to clean out the tanks after fermentation, all of that stuff. So yeah, it was maybe hard to hand over the job.
Excellent. So what's the next wine we're gonna taste then?
We're on to so 20. Shit, I can't get the heck of these bloody cameras. But anyway, 2016. Oh no, but I'm not clear enough for that. So So the Saboteur Red has been, well, both the Saboteur wines have been an unbelievable success, from a drinkability point of view, but also from an aging point of view. We found wines, they drink well, but also have various side to them, they do age really well as well. So the Saboteur 2016, for the whites, the blends change every year. The 16 is 54% Shiraz, 32% Cabernet Sauvignon, which is it's probably the first time, maybe the second time we've had more Cab than Mourvèdre. So 32 Cabernet Sauvignon and then 14% Mourvèdre. So all the components are fermented separately, and separately, and then we sit down and we agonize over sometimes a very long time. A month is probably the longest we've taken, but we will sit down and we taste all the different portions, all the different permutations, and we get to the point of view that we get to the point where you say, right, this is the best we can make this year. And so the blend does change. The Shiraz is giving you the dark berry fruit, the Cabernet is giving the backbone, and the Mourvèdre is just adding this lovely polish to the finish of the wine. So it spends a year in barrel, a year in bottle, and then we release it. So 2018, drought, so lots of G fruit, very lovely balance to it. I always joke that it's our braai wine or barbecue wine from the UK. It does go really, really well with a fatty lamb chop. But the big thing for me is that overall drinkability. You can drink this chilled, and it really, really, really is refreshing. So yeah, the Saboteur 2016, very special. I'm a big fan of it, and it's nice to go back and visit again. As Alice mentioned, we're on the 2017 now, which has got Grenache in for the first time. Ideally, I personally would love this to become a Rhone blend, but the Cabernet is just too good to leave out. So in 2016, the Cabernet was very special, and therefore the bigger percentage. That's the most Cabernet we've had in the blend, 32%. So enjoy it. I hope everybody's got a nice piece of meat to tuck into for the main course, and we can really, really enjoy it.
We certainly will enjoy it. Cheers.
I've got the same job with you, Niels, with trying to get the glass to the right size. So cheers.
So we've got a couple of other questions, right? There is another bottle on behind me. All right. You did say I could ask any question.
You can ask anything.
Yeah. Okay. So this is my last bottle of this.
Coming. I know it's coming. Okay. File 13. Yeah.
Because
this was a.
Off you go.
This was a administrative cock-up, let's call it, in simple terms. Normally, I make sure I'm around when there's labelling to be done, and I had to either go overseas or off to Joburg at short notice, and I asked anonymous to just make sure that all the 2009, which was in one row of bins, and all the 2007, which was in another row of bins, got labelled and at the right time. I don't think she got off her arse, and unfortunately, some of the 07 got labelled as 09, or there was a confusion somewhere. Anyway, bottom line is the leftover wine. I knew what it was. The could certify it again because they tell the difference between 7 and 9. The best thing situation, we brought out a label called File 13 because it subsequently we found out that all the records pertaining to these wines was destroyed, and put into the bin, which is file 13, to hide her mistakes. And so we brought out this file 13 wine. Those of you who are lucky to have some of it, half an hour old, 500 bottles. If you do pull the cork underneath where the cork comes into contact with the wine, if it is very, very dark, then it is a 2009 Luddite. If the cork is a lighter color, then it is 2007. That's the only way to tell them apart, unless you're the winemaker. But that's a simple way of telling them apart. But file 13 has become a bit of a legend.
My understanding from file 13, Alice might be able to help me out here a little bit, is that the fact that there was a very heavy evening one night, and when they woke up in the morning, no one could remember which was what. So Niels had to then make a decision on how he was going to market this wine. And Alice, you're probably the only person who was there who was sober. So what happened is, what was great for all of us is we got some very cheap Luddite. Is that correct, Alice?
For you, yeah, we'll say that's correct.
Very diplomatic.
Yeah.
But what's tremendous is that there are just so many stories, and everywhere you go, and now it's Alice and also Penny as well, because you've done tastings for us, and you've got stories upon stories upon stories, because the wine is fantastic. It's made, every vintage is completely different, and I think it's inspiring that Alice, you're actually following in your father's footsteps. You're challenging him, all right, and you're enjoying it, and you're smiling the whole time. It's absolutely superb, and the fact that you're here, okay.
I'd say, Alice, in this point, at the home of rugby.
You're not sure yet.
If you didn't know, by the way, guys, Alice is the moment staying in Twickenham, so I just let you in on that one. Yep.
Absolutely. But we have really enjoyed. As I'm now talking about the whole of Selborne Wine Society over the last, probably decade. Thank you very much, Nikki. All right, you notice we've got some the girls that are literally they could not get involved. But over the last 10 years, it's been absolutely tremendous to be able to build a relationship up with a fantastic family in a brilliant part of the world. And we really hope to see you again, Niels, very shortly. Alice, the invite is whenever you want to come down, you know where we are, all right? It'd be fantastic to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my job to summarise up the evening, and the only way I can do this, Niels, is that there is, in my opinion, only one way. Fantastic wine, thank you much. What I thought I'd try and do is predict next year's Lions score. So Andy and I have a good prediction. We've spent a lot of time over this. We've argued about what should be the prediction for next year. So I'm going to leave it on this note. So we're going to put the scores, what we believe the score is going to be. Trust me, Andy, we've been loggerhorns. We've been worried about this. How are we going to get it right? We've looked at the players. We've analysed it. We've done fitness tests, and this is the only result that's possible.
That was a bit. And he knows that you must come and join me on the stoop at Luddite. We'll have a Friday celebration before the Saturday game, whether it be the Stormers or the Test match.
Perfect. All right.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you very much, everybody. Take care. See you all soon.
Good luck. Thank you to everybody.